I wanted to start out with why we want to run the animal shelter. And to do that, for me, I need to go back a little bit in time. When John Hill was the principal and John Cook was the superintendent of Big Rapids High School, the new high school was constructed, and I think these two people were best for this job because they had two qualities, vision and passion. The same is true of when I helped to start Artworks downtown. A group of us had vision and passion. And just look at what Artworks in the high school are today. Not only have they stood the test of time, but they're wonderful facilities with direct community involvement. We can have that type of place for animals too. We honestly feel that our board of directors, along with the volunteers, would be the best choice the county has for this project. Clearly, we're not in it for the money. The people on our board drive across the state, transporting animals and adopting animals to save their lives. And that's passion. And I'll tell you, of all the projects I've been involved with over the years, the ones that are outstanding in this community are the ones that are built on passion. And then there's the vision piece. I'm not going to read to you the qualities that I possess in the shelter. To run the shelter, they're in the proposal. And I'm not going to list the qualities that the people on our board of directors possess. I did put a couple things in there about them, but I thought you might all like to go home tonight. They're all really qualified, and so am I. And you said I only have 25 minutes. So these people have the passion and the vision for the animals in Mecosta County, but more than that, they have it for the people in this county. They're also a fiscally responsible group of individuals who've worked in, been treasurers for, and run businesses. It's important to us that this is a long-term safe place for the Mecosta County stray animals. We're in it for the long haul, much longer, for 5 years. For all of us, it's a part of who we are, this caring for animals, not to mention the saving of their lives. We believe the quality of life for people and animals in this county needs to be a good quality of life. Our county needs to be one that people are attracted to. They want to make their homes here because it's a good place. We believe we have the ability to respond and adapt to the changing needs of Mecosta County and its animals. We need an animal shelter and an education facility in this county. It's imperative that shelter dogs and cats are worked with and socialized. We feel with this process in place, less animals will be relinquished and that more well-behaved animals will stay in their permanent homes. We also feel the community needs the support of qualified persons to help them deal with cat and dog behavioral issues, and we bring that to the table. Myself alone, I get at least 7 to 10 calls a week about animals and behavior issues. Lots of times, I'm the last stop. If you don't help me, we're going to euthanize our dog, if you can't help me. And sometimes it's an easy fix. They just didn't know what the answer was. Good canine citizens are a benefit to any community. This Center for Animals we propose would be open to the public for the animals and people of Mecosta County with volunteers welcome. If our bid is accepted, we would operate the shelter with the same high standards we operate the Riley McKenzie Fund. Not only do we have high standards, but we are physically responsible with every project we're involved with. We feel if the Riley McKenzie Fund is awarded the bid for our animal shelter, the facility can set the same positive example for our community and for others who look to us to set high standards. This project is being looked at by people all over the state of Michigan. There are some other really good shelters and good facilities, but a lot of people are watching what we're doing here statewide. Our vision would be that all Mecosta County cats and dogs would be accepted in the shelter with no Class B transfers to dealers. Animals would be returned to owners first, adopted to individuals, then transferred to rescues or shelters. When all resources to place stray and abandoned animals have been exhausted, they would be humanely euthanized for aggression, behavioral illness, or behavioral issues, severe illness, trauma, and overcrowding. Community volunteers would be welcomed, collaboration with the county and other animal welfare groups, collaboration statewide with shelters and rescue and animal welfare groups. Would be run by a board of directors with a paid shelter manager and possibly a paid assistant volunteer coordinator. Hours of operation and care would be given to the animals daily. The shelter would be open to the public for adoption, training, and to help animals with behavioral issues. And the hours are real subjective. I put in here Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 2, with Tuesday evening hours for dog training classes, but that can be changed, as well as any evening appointments for adopters. The proposed site of the shelter would be north of Big Rapids on 2 to 3 acres. We're currently working with a realtor as well as several private individuals. I have talked to Maxine McClellan about the industrial park there, and 18 Mile would be the east side. And Fenstermachers have property on Old 131 right across from Marco. Doyle has a piece, and DeVries is also a piece. So we looked at those pieces, and we looked at a few buildings in town that are available, but none seem to work. Bruce Dilg would be the architect of our project, of ARCOM. Bruce has done quite a bit of work in this community. He's retired from Ferris. There is not a proposed drawing of the building, and that is because we were adamant that we not spend money, even though Bruce is doing it for next to nothing, that was raised hard to be spent on animals in this county. And so we just wouldn't do that until we're further along in the process, because that money was raised to help animals, and it certainly would if we got the bid, but I just can't do that to the people who support us. The builder would be Kevin DeFevers Construction. Ferris Construction and the architectural students at Ferris are both on board. The building would be designed for the future with expansion in mind. The rooms would include a lobby that could double as a classroom for dog obedience classes, isolation rooms, medical room, 2 adoption rooms for people to meet animals, 30 kennels, a cat room, a laundry room with a dog wash area. And my logic for that is every time I pull a dog out of a shelter, they need a bath before they go home. And so I think either a volunteer could give those dogs a bath, or if people wanted to do it themselves, they could. Feed room, a human bathroom, a shared officer, shelter manager, animal control officer office. Office equipment would be pretty standard: copier desks, phones, file cabinets, conference tables, etc. The building would be very practical, yet we're realistic on the square foot cost of the building. We have a copy of the building codes, regulations, and laws for animal shelters in Michigan. We would adhere to those guidelines. There's 2 options of cost as far as we're concerned. One would be a building owned and operated solely by the Riley McKenzie Fund nonprofit, with the county paying a portion of construction and Riley McKenzie Fund raising part of the construction money. Running the day-to-day operation of the facility would be the county paid stipend and fundraising dollars. Option 2 would be the building owned and operated by the county with the Riley McKenzie Fund nonprofit running day-to-day operation of the facility with county paid stipend and fundraising dollars. And we do really feel option 2 is the way to go. There's a lot of counties around here that are doing well with that, with a county-owned building. The Riley McKenzie Fund feels, along with some strong community supporters, that we can easily raise $100,000 in a relatively short time frame to help construct a building with a yet-to-be-determined amount from the county. Budgeting and accounting records: the adoption fees would not be returned to the county, but would help to support the shelter. The shelter manager would do the day-to-day accounting, but Baker Management now does our accounting, and they would continue to do the main accounting. Accountability for the adoption, spay-neuter responsibility would be the shelter managers, as well as all other records. Care of the animals at some point, possible microchipping, possible shots, possible spay-neuter, emergency care always when needed. Animals would be cared for at or above the state guidelines, contracting with all 5 veterinarians. Our volunteer network would consist of volunteer coordinators for dogs, cats, fundraising. Youth volunteers would include the McCosker County Youth Foundation, the MCAT Kids, the Key Club, National Honor Society, Ferris State University, sorority, fraternities, honors, social work, grant writing, cleaning people, lawn maintenance, and anything else we would seem to see fit. Our collaborative activities, we really do feel like this should be a collaborative project. We currently have in place a good working relationship with all 5 area veterinarians, and that's not always real common with nonprofit funds or with rescues. They don't always work well with all the vets in their county, and we do. They've all been approached and have all indicated they would work with us on a rotating basis for euthanasia and medical care of animals. Work with existing county animal groups as well as volunteers. We would also work with Michigan animal transport groups. And as far as rescues, there are credible and not credible rescues, just like everything else, and we would work with any credible rescues, and we pretty much know who they are already. We'd work with other Michigan animal shelters. We'd like to work with the Community Corrections Work Release Program on some of the maybe lawn maintenance and cleaning and that type of thing. Various construction and architectural student organizations, honor society, as well as sororities, fraternities, high school students, MCAC honor societies. New Journey has called and asked if they could volunteer. Last night we held a meeting with prospective volunteers and interested parties. If we're not awarded the bid, we would like to pass that information and list of individuals on to whoever is awarded the bid. As far as community outreach, the Riley McKenzie Fund and the shelter would continue the education of community children and adults with the certified therapy dog teams that we have. We currently have about 30 dogs and handlers that do that project. Kids would still read to dogs at the libraries with our certified therapy dogs. Educational visits would be made to elementary schools, as well as field trips could come to the shelter. We would continue dog obedience classes, and we would assist with animal behavior issues. The future, was brought up that Osceola County is looking and watching the situation. And if that did happen and we needed to have a shared facility, I think that that's a possibility. And then should the city in the county be responsible for some of the support? Each city in the county, is that something to research for the future? And I did add this morning on 9 and 10, and David and I have talked about this a lot at home, and I should have put it in there anyway, but Otsego County passed a millage and built and operates their shelter with it. They have a brand new shelter, and the building was $800,000, and they passed that millage here a couple of years ago for that shelter, and it was on the news this morning, coincidentally, and I thought, shoot, should have written that down. So y'all got that handwritten in. The Riley McKenzie's involvement, our 501c3 nonprofit status is in place, and I have checked with the Internal Revenue Service, and it's okay to use that. It's basically the same that we're doing right now, except there'd be a building involved. We feel we can raise the amount listed to help Mecosta County animals. We've been doing it for a couple of years. Generally, dog obedience classes bring in around $8,000. The art fundraiser we have in March brought in $3,500. Yard sale, a couple thousand. Anniversary fundraiser brings in about $3,500. Our Heart February fundraiser, which y'all should buy one at businesses for $1 and put your dog's name on it, or your cat. That brings in $1,000. Walk with your dog, 3K, 5K brought in a couple thousand, and we get at least 5,000 in individual donations, which would total about 25,000 a year conservatively. In the 2 years we've been around, we've raised and spent in this county $75,000. We don't keep our money in the bank, we spend it on local animals. Right now we're spaying and neutering about 80 animals, and I have about 20 more to schedule this month. And that was all coordinated through Department of Human Services. The Board of Directors would oversee the operations, and I'll let you read the qualifications. It would be myself and my husband are on the board, Heather Halstead, Steve Scott, Carol Byrne, Sherry Comer, Trish Bunce, Bart Graham, Sue Brooks, and Glenda Montague. The shelter manager would report directly to the Riley McKenzie Fund's Board of Directors, County Commissioners, with additional working relationship with the Animal Control Officer. My volunteer coordinations are next, which I don't need to read to you, and my paid qualifications that I've been paid for are after that. The last one on that list, the Who Lets the Dogs Out and I'll Breed Dog Training, I will tell you that probably, I don't know, that's like 10 people a week call me, and I don't usually charge anybody anything, but that would be what should be paid. I just like to help people so they don't give their dogs up, and that's what's important to me. Our strengths are that we have the 501c3 and profit, or nonprofit already in line. We are established for 2 years, and we're very well respected. Fundraising experience, we have a lot of that. Community outreach experience, we have a large volunteer base. We're good at coordinating volunteers. In 2011, we won the Community Service Award from the Michigan Veterinary Medical Association for the whole state. We're respected in the community. The commissioner's responsibilities, I feel that we need to think about the advantage of county ownership for the longevity and stability of the project. Isabella County is a good example of a facility owned by the county and run by nonprofit with a network of volunteers. The financial support, I gave you 3 examples of 3 different counties. We looked at a lot more than that, but these are close to us. We feel that the county should physically be in line with the counties around us. Isabella County, although larger in population than Mecosta, budgets $366,000 annually for running their shelter, and the building's county-owned and maintained. Mecosta County's population is 60% of Isabella County's size. That would figure out to $219,000 annually for a county our size. Lake County budgets $140,000 annually, and they're 33% smaller in population than Mecosta. Therefore, a county our size would spend $419,000 annually to match what Lake County spends. Osceola County budgets $120,000 annually. Osceola County's population is 50% our size, bringing the total we should be spending on animal shelter in line with the county's budget to $240,000 annually. We're not asking for these amounts of money. That's just food for thought to let you know what other counties are doing, and that information's all online. Tuscola County has 3 animal control officers and a county policy of enforcing their dog licenses. Annually, they raise enough money through licensing and fines to pay those officers and support an animal shelter. In conclusion, let us take some time and look objectively at the process. It needs to be well thought out and well planned to ensure the longevity of this project. The County of Mecosta, the government, the commissioners, the law enforcement must be directly involved with this project. We do understand the logic in fast-tracking this project, as ideally a shelter should be up and running by July 1st, 2012. If we're chosen for this project, Ken DeVries has stated he will contract with us on a month-to-month basis until the new shelter's up and running, if that's necessary. Over the past 22 years, this county has saved nearly $500,000 by having the DeVries run our current shelter. This money should now be used to help construct a new shelter. People who come in at the current level of proposed county support cannot do an adequate job on our animal shelter, according to our research. And I didn't put especially with cats, but especially with cats, that's going to be a big money issue. We feel if we're to continue on the bid for this project, the budget needs to be significantly adjusted. We have 90% of our numbers in for the project, but do not feel we can accurately project all the costs of the building and running the shelter when we're not given ample time to plan a project. No one can. We would love to move forward with this bid, but our board, our accountant, our architect, our builder, our fundraiser, and our realtor feel this project should not be rushed. If you would like us to continue to move forward with our research and our bid, we would be pleased to, but would request more time to present final numbers. Anyone contemplating a new business would take more than 2 weeks' time to do so. We truly believe this needs to be taken on this project, the best way to ensure accountability for our government and to protect their investment in this project. In conclusion, we would really like to be considered for this project, but we would ask you to do your homework for our community and call some references on groups we've worked with. For instance, for our group, you could call any local vet, you could talk with Animal Control, members of the Mecosta County Foundation, Mecosta Osceola Department of Human Service. We can coordinate through Nancy Lentz, Love in the Name of Christ. We work with their people through their manager, Diane. We work through Kelly Samuels with WISE, and that's it. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, questions?
Well, I guess I have one question. Ultimately, it's going to come down to some dollars and cents. And while your architect and everybody says this is too short of a time, we did not want an exact dollar amount, but we wanted some kind of an idea of a plan and dollar amounts, just to give us what your expectations of us are. If you got 90% of the stuff, I'd like to know what kind of a dollar figure you're looking at. Someplace, is it between, you knew what our expectations were coming into this. You're full aware that we do not want to own a building. We do not want to be the managers or the owner of this animal shelter. So I expected something with some financial idea so I could start wrapping my brain around this too. And I don't have that.
I can give you some idea, but I can't give you exact concrete numbers.
Well,
We looked at a very, very practical plan is what we're looking at, not state-of-the-art facility. And we honestly feel to put up a practical shelter, and 2,400 square feet is a practical size, not necessarily huge or, and so we looked at 2,400 square feet, and even with some of the labor being donated, the land, and the curb cuts, the parking lot, the building, the cages for the cats, the facility for the dogs and all the equipment, we really believe that it's going to be around $300,000 to build that kind of facility reasonably, not extravagantly.
So you think that your operating budget would be $125,000 a year?
I would think.
And now, does that take into account amortizing that $300,000, or the $300,000 is separate?
Separate.
Okay.
that's just the building.
And then how much of your annual budget do you think the operation of the shelter would bring in? Because there are some revenues related to running the shelter.
As far as the adoption fees,
Things like that, right?
that would depend. I think our adoption fees right now are too low. I mean, right now they're $35, and so you only keep 10 if everybody spays their animal like they're supposed to. And I think they should be 50. And so it depends on the amount of animals you adopt. If you adopted out 100, you'd have $2,500.
Okay.
Now, part of the 125,000, is that including salary for animal control, or is that status quo?
Not including salary for animal control. And I think that you need 2 animal control officers in this county too, but that's just me all alone.
Well, we discussed before, like Isabella County,
They're-
Osceola County,
they're-
part of their budgeting is paying for the animal control officers.
It does, but if you use those figures, if you say, okay, we're 60% of Isabella, and if we were going to be in line with them, I'm not saying we need to be or have to be, but if we were going to be, there's 219,000. So if I'm saying we're gonna run the shelter on 125,000, there's, like $90,000 in there.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that further.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's the same with if you say, well, Reed City should double it, and we're gonna take 120,000 out of 240, and I'm not saying those numbers are right, I'm just saying, if you look, kind of dollars for dollars. And they have 2 animal control people.
I guess as I'm looking at that, the 2,400 square foot shelter is the size that you believe can operate and cover everything, okay?
And, I guess.
What style of construction is that building wise? I mean, you look at a pole barn style building? Or?
We looked at pole barn and regular stick built, but it wouldn't be as tall as a pole barn. And that's why when we looked at buildings, there's a couple buildings that it's possible, but, as far as heat and everything, you're heating, a lot of
Right.
space that you don't use, so we really thought that when we talked to Bruce, a lower building would be better. And, I just don't see any way to do this other than to really do it right. And I just think this is what kind of facility, and so
Did
does
you-
everybody.
Was there any discussion with the DeVries about purchasing their facility?
We did discuss that. Ken said he had 50,000 in that building, and he would entertain any offer that was a little bit higher than that, or that was higher. He didn't say a little bit higher.
Including 2 or 3 acres of property.
But all that is a kennel. You'd have to add on for cats, you'd have to.
Yeah, how big is that building? Square footage wise?
I don't know the square footage wise, I would say probably 20 foot wide by 50 foot long probably. There's no room to house cats there.
No, I do that. I was just curious what the square footage of
The
the
other
building
thing
was.
is, if you start remodeling a building like that, I know it's up to code right now for what it is, but I'm not sure that the standards would work for what it necessarily needs to be if you started on a remodeling.
What is Bruce charging for the architectural fees for still?
He said he would charge $2,000, and that would include to pull all the permits and fees. So, And as far as salary, the salary we put in there for like 2 people, and you know, I mean, you guys know what this is. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, dogs get fed. I know the standard says for the state, dogs get fed 1 day a week, or 1 time a day, they don't. They get fed twice a day. And cats, and the salary that we looked at was like $25,000, which is basically not much for somebody to work 80, 100 hours a week. So it is really important to us, though.
So you would be looking at one person making 25,000 a year?
Probably 2, not 25 each.
No,
Probably 25,000, and that would be 2 people.
That would be 2 people, okay. So you're about 25,000 in salaries. Okay. I'm assuming with this, your group would have no problem with an annual financial report to the county?
No problem at all. I think we should be responsible for
Right.
that. The one thing financially, I know that $50,000 a year has been talked about, and it's been talked about being spent in different ways. And I really don't think any of that money, I think it should be $50,000 a year. We don't think that any of that particular operating budget should be given to any group up front, because I think what could happen if it is so they get $130,000 for the first year, and they use that to, you know, put their building in, and maybe they'll do okay. Maybe somebody can do that. I don't think so, according to the research we've done, but I would hate to see this county give out that kind of money and then have somebody say, well, we're out of money, we're done, we're bankrupt, and then we've given out that large sum right in the beginning. So I just think that $50,000 a year needs to stay intact, and the other, you know, if there's a different building or something, needs to come from someone else. But I don't think it should be split like that, because if you can't run it for $50,000, you certainly can't for 30.
What kind of turnout do you have at your meeting in that, by the way, just out of curiosity?
About 45. We put it on Facebook. It was in the Pioneer about 10 days ago, so we were happy with that, considering we didn't really have much time to publicize anything.
Okay, any other questions?
Just out of curiosity, what do you mean people all over the state are watching what's happening across the country? Talking about
Well, we had, last night, a gal drove up from the Humane Society of the United States, from Lansing, for that meeting last night. They're watching. Every rescue wants to see what's going to be done with this county, because they all wanted the trade live to go away so bad. And we're well thought of, and honestly, you know, they would all like us to be able to do this and do something that could set the bar for Michigan, along with some of the other shelters, like the Otsego shelter. And I think other counties are, for instance, Osceola, I know is, they want to know what's going to happen here, because they're talking about privatization. So I think a lot of groups are watching, and I think we have an opportunity, and I believe that because, and I don't know if y'all ever followed it or y'all remember it, but before Fairman's was there was a few pieces of pottery and a little bit of artwork in the window because somebody thought it would look better, and then an empty building on the corner of downtown. And I walked by and thought, geez, you know, it'd be cool if we had a Center for the Arts. And I went to the Council for the Arts and talked to a few people, and they said, if you can raise $10,000, we'll back you. In 3 days, we had $15,000. And that's something.
We're talking an ongoing every year from now on, somebody's got to do this. You know, the Breeze have done it for 20-some years and done a wonderful job, so
He's done a fabulous job, and as far as I'm concerned, he's pretty much donated most of that to the county because he hasn't made any money. And I've said that to several of you guys. I really think our county, and I really believe this, and I'm not trying to make anybody mad, but we should be ashamed of ourselves for paying that man $33,000 to do what he's done every year. And I'm sorry, I really am not, I'm not in it to upset people. I'm the communicator. I work with people, and I want everybody here. This is my town.
Number 2 on the back page, Tuscola County. They support 3 animal control officers.
And run a shelter.
And run a shelter on money from licensing and fines. Where'd you get that?
They find from one of the animal control officers there. A friend of mine connected with her through Facebook, and she said, We write all the tickets, we bring in all the money. The tickets are $40 if your animal is not licensed. And I've always thought that could be done. I think you could easily pay, I mean, separate from this whole issue, I think you could, Trent can't do it. Trent's got his hands full. But I think you could easily pay a person to go door to door. My 7 dogs have licenses always, but a lot of them don't. And they should have, not only licenses, they should have shots. And I think we can make a lot of money. And probably support the shelter, or at least part way support it. And then the millage is put through too, so that's another option in Gaylord. So there's
Okay.
lots of ways to do it.
All right, all right, thanks, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yep.